there is a big difference, I think, between the argument about the Confederate monuments, right, which is like a real conversation I think that we should be having in America, right, and then the outright racism and white supremacy argument, which Donald Trump has just sort of like lumped it all together. In his mind, this is an argument about Confederate monuments. I really think that's how he's processed this. And like, I grew up in South Carolina. I tweeted this yesterday. I've heard ham-fisted defenses of the Confederacy my entire life. And Donald Trump's comments yesterday were the least eloquent and least thought out that I've ever heard. Right? Like, I've heard it, right? You've heard it. I mean, we've all heard, like, and he just doesn't get it. He just doesn't get it.
Yeah, I actually think some of those more, high-minded defenses get undermined by Trump basically saying stuff like, when he goes out and endorses the use of, basically white supremacist protests to defend it, you have all these people who are saying, we know that it was connected to slavery and the Civil War and white supremacy, but we still don't, support taking them down. It is a monument to history and a significant portion of history in this region.
The thing that offends me the most, I think, is this moral equivalency that he keeps preaching. And first is a moral equivalency between this guy that we just heard, right, a clear anti-Semite, and Heather Heyer, who's this young woman who lost her life, who just came out to say, no, this kind of KKK is wrong. That's not what America's all about, right? How can you say that they're equally responsible for the violence? This young woman who lost her life with this terrorist with his car, and the other is the moral equivalency between. Let's hear that clip, Jamie, again, between George Washington and Robert E. Lee, right? That if you take down Robert E. Lee, then you have to take down the Washington Monument, in effect.
Was George Washington a slave owner? So will George Washington now lose his status? Are we going to take down, are we going to take down statues to George Washington? How about Thomas Jefferson? What do you think of Thomas Jefferson? You like him?
By the way, the whole tone, Trump's whole tone yesterday was so...
Excuse me.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah. How dare you? But this idea, right? We know that George Washington was a slave owner. We know Thomas Jefferson was. Yeah, we also know they're the founders of this country. Robert E. Lee tried to destroy this country so people could continue to own slaves.
Right. And I have complicated thoughts about how we memorialize slave owners in this country. But that said, there is a very concrete difference between the reason, not just between the men, but between the reason why we have Washington statues and the reason why we have Lee statues. The reason why we have Lee statues, the reason why we have Jackson statues, the reason why there's a giant engraving of leaders from the Klan, right, of Nathan Bedford Forrest, is to memorialize white supremacy, not the founding of the country, not the high-minded ideals of the Constitution. The reason why and you can see the embrace of Confederate symbology, the embrace of the flag, the creation of these statues occurs in waves in direct response to black political activism. So lots of them came about in the 1920s when black people, also when immigrants became a big problem, when the Second Klan came about. And lots of them came sort of during Reconstruction when people used them to symbolize the fact that they were taking back their state governments from Negro rule. So you look at these statues, thousands of them were erected basically to symbolize that the South had actually not lost. That the 70-year reign of white supremacy that was unbroken until the Civil Rights Movement in the South won. That they actually had inherited the mantle from the Confederacy and they won. And that is what those statues, that's what they celebrate. That is their purpose. And so to argue against taking them down is to basically, and Trump obviously has no command of this history or no deftness around the topic at all.
That's an understatement.
Right. No. But there is obviously a clear difference in meaning and tone and purpose of these statues. And again, talking to a community of black people who live and always have lived in the Statue of Lee, it's meant to celebrate their subjugation. That's it. That is the point. And so how do we reconcile that and leaving them up with becoming the America I believe most of us want to become?